So I closed the example from yesterday, and when the software SOLIDWORKS launches, we'll come up to the welcome screen unless we click the box "Do not show on startup." So in the day-to-day commercial type operation, I don't usually have this show up, but since it's here, we'll go ahead and click on the recent documents. Also notice that you can jump over to recent documents and folders and filter for parts, assemblies, drawings, and top level assemblies. So apparently it is looking at the order. So when I click on that, I would say it is not a best practice to save with the sketch open. It will allow it, but there may be some issues with the geometry. Things that you may change, that you may close, um, that might get lost. So, as a best practice, we're going to accept the sketch and then go ahead and complete our save and close um, the part. All right. So the features is what we're going to use to actually create the extrude to make a solid. And notice that a lot of these are grayed out because there's no geometry to act upon. There's no solid body been created yet. So the revolve extrude boss base and then the revolve boss base would be something that we could work from. The swept boss base needs at least a couple of sketches for it to operate. So really, these are going to be our two choices. And I mentioned we need to be careful with these overlapping. So when we start in on the exercises, we're not going to have these nested, doubly nested geometries to get us into the mode, but you need to be aware that if it occurs, that they're kind of what the corrections are, what it's asking for. So normally I would just see a preview if there wasn't these other geometries. And then with the shaded regions, notice that the selected contours down here popped up, and I have a slightly different symbol than what I will get if this was just the box. Right, so what the contours are is I can pick an outside edge of any of these objects. I can pick the region within any of those objects. And what I have to be careful of, that will be acceptable. And we're going to see if it has any issue. Let's see, that one has a little bit of an overlap. I'll throw it in there. We'll see what it does. But as I mentioned, that little line segment there would tend to indicate a zero thickness geometry. We'll leave it at 10 millimeters just to see if it completes. So it did complete, but it left an edge. So a lot of times there will be, nope, it actually made three separate solid bodies. So that is the correction for the zero thickness. Is it just goes ahead and says you have three solid bodies. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do. All right, so getting back into these, if I expand out, we can right click on the feature and go back in and edit it. And let's just clear all of the selections, and I'll go back and pick the outside. So if I had just drawn the box, no internal geometry, this is what I would expect to see is the solid preview, and is it going the right way, and is my dimension correct, and we get now one solid body of that geometry. And then we can do other things with those sketches, but if we accidentally drew a circle or drew another box and there's overlap and things going on in there, it kind of changes the workflow, and you need to be aware of those options. All right, so in this case, since I have that geometry, then I can highlight that sketch, and we'll go back in. And because these other items are now available, I can do an extrude cut, and it's picking up the sketch, so I really just need to tell it what it is that I want to extrude. So either, again, a region. Probably don't need sketch 1. I'd rather it not do that. And so if I pick inside, and that's going to be an easier area to grab, or I can hover over the perimeter, and that will give me a contour. So they're doing the same thing. It's what's available for it to act on. All right, so we told it. Let me go back and check that. So again, edit the feature. Edit is blind in 10 millimeters. So what we have to watch for is, since that is a blind in condition, if I double click, and by the way, I am holding down the middle mouse button, and as I move the mouse, it is rotating the solid. And if I double click on Boss Extrude 1, that gives me my dimensions. I will have the sketch dimensions and the solid dimensions. So if I go back and I make that 20 by double clicking on it, and then nothing really happens, right? It's showing me the little stoplight here, a little stoplight over here. And if we came up and rebuild, notice that the control key, or control plus B, is our hotkey. And as I rebuild it, now that hole does not go all the way through. So this is where we start talking about design intent. Start thinking about how these pieces go together. When we're designing on the fly and don't have instructions or anything to work from, it's just coming out of our imagination. This is just a ongoing process of, did it do what I want? Am I getting the result that I expected? So again, right click, edit the feature, and I want to, instead of a blind in condition, we'll just tell it to go through all. So its in condition says find the end of the part, and we will pick up from there. Mention the toggles, reversing the direction, that little yellow preview goes away, and that would produce a can't solve because there's nothing there to cut. All right, and then the last of our navigation here is to right click, and if we edit the sketch, or I right click on the feature and go one more in and edit the sketch, that puts me back into this geometry, and then I can make changes. Let's mess something up here by changing the construction geometry to an object, and see, because I had the contour, it doesn't really mess with anything. If I had picked the regions, then that would have created a situation where I have all of those different geometries, and it completely changes the result. And the cut extrude is not as happy anymore, so we see intended cut does not intersect something. So let's edit the feature, and it is finding that, but we're on the contour, so let's not sure why it's not. How about we go to an up to next? If I reverse it, I definitely don't see it. That's interesting. Well, it's not going to let me out of it, so I'm going to have to hit the X and then go back. So this is going to be I made a change. I know that there is an issue, and in the worst case, I'm going to have to reassess that geometry. So one more click, edit the feature. Let's go ahead and clear, and I will find, and it still doesn't think that intersects, and that is wild. Okay, well, let's go the other route and return it. I could also have done a Control Z, so let's just go ahead and do that. That puts me back, and then I can make a different decision. So a couple of ways to approach the error. All right, so as we build into this, you're going to see these things. Control Z, undo is going to be your friend. That is the same as coming up to the top bar, to the menu, and doing a undo. All right, so at this point we would want to save this. I created a folder for my examples, and when we get into the exercises for the assignments, we'll go through the file process of creating a folder, saving these, what to look for, and the different file types.